Hey, folks, this is the True American Podcast. I am your host. As you know, with the True American Podcast, I really try to focus on local politics and Kentucky politics, somewhat from what I could consider a politically conservative point of view. But that doesn't mean I'm not willing to listen to other folks and get their analysis in, and independent folk, whatever. And today, I wanted to reach out and bring on my brother Vincent Palazzo. He used to be working with the American Family Association, but he's also just some average guy who's been out there talking about the issues for a long time. He's not scared to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, and etc. And then I got my brother here, James Madry. He's just a local guy who does a lot of thinking about politics. They both just are really concerned about our city and the direction the city's taken. And I wanted to bring them on to talk about the recent election here of mayor. And as everybody knows, Greenberg won. William Deeruff came in second, and third overall was Martina Kanucky. We'll talk a little bit about her campaign or how she was treated. But I first of all just wanted to start off, Vince. I'm going to start off with you, man. My understanding is that, and I'm not saying that you're a member of the Republican Party, that you're not, but my understanding is that with the Republican Party, we hadn't had a Republican mayor since for close to 50-something years. And I think the last time I think the Republican Party had any type of a serious chance of getting in there with a candidate was with Hal Heiner. He came like a few thousand votes short. I mean, it was really amazing.
What year was that?
Huh?
Do you remember? What
Brother,
year was that?
I can't remember. I know I can't remember, but
it was quite a few years back.
Yeah, it was before.
Long.
Yes, exactly. What I want to share with both of you is that I, at the time, was having lunch or dinner with a high-ranking Republican official, and I'll never forget he said this. I'm not going to share his name, but he said to me, "Man, if we can't win with Hal Heiner, we can't win with anybody." Brothers, Hal Heiner had a squeaky clean background. And you know the importance of that. Like when you look at that Herschel Walker campaign, oh my God, they brought up everything Herschel Walker did going back to kindergarten, when he took the little girl's pigtails and put it in the ink blot. I mean, they wiped him out. They couldn't do that with Hal Heiner. They couldn't do that with Hal, yet we still lost. But it's only by a few thousand votes. Brother Vince, I'm going to start with you. And Brother James, you're on deck. What happened? Why did Greenberg win and why did Deeruff lose?
Well, and I'll tell you, I got involved in local politics a little over 6 years ago when my sister first ran for Congress. And I can sum it up in one word, and it may be an unpopular opinion, but I believe with all my heart, this is what it is. Fraud. Fraud. Election fraud. I used to think it only happened at the top levels, but over the last 6 or 7 years, I'm 100% convinced it goes all the way down to school board.
Wow.
And I hate it. I hate it, but there's no candidate you could run and win against cheating until the fraud is exposed and weeded out. We'll never get conservative or Republican anything. Right. President, mayor, governor, anything. And I believe with all my heart that it will be exposed and weeded out shortly.
Okay. Comes down to one word for you: fraud.
Fraud.
All right, Brother James, what are your thoughts?
Well, let me say, I've been a lifelong registered Democrat since I first, registered back in my early 20s. And this is probably the first election where and my politics have always been kind of centered, could go either left or right, depending upon the situation. And this is the first election where I pretty much down ballot voted Republican in just about every category, with the exception of one or two, because I think the direction that, the city, the country, the nation as a whole is we got to kind of put the brakes on some of the situations. Going back to the local election, I mean, Louisville has always been center left city, especially when it comes to the local elections. If you look at it, the mayors pretty much have been Democrat, and even when you run for governor, those who have run for governor, they usually lose, the populace here in the Louisville or the Jefferson County area. And then when you get into the statewide elections, then it kind of takes a different turn. So I think Louisville is probably more a center left city in terms of its politics.
Right.
And people have just become accustomed to a Democratic mayor, and that's just the way that they see it, and it's hard to overcome. When again, I remember the name Hal Hiner. I think it was was it in the 80s, 70s, 80s when he ran for mayor? Because that name
in the 90s. At least
was it in
the 90s?
Okay,
my little girl and I took her to a campaign event.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going all the way back to some of the earlier mayors. I forgot some of their names, going back into the 70s and 80s. But Louisville has always had, since I was a kid growing up, it's always had a Democratic mayor. Of course, the governorship could flip flop from one to the other.
Right.
And I just think that it's going to be tough for anybody who's on the Republican side to win, the local mayor, in terms of that. It's going to be tough, even though you have the city council that's, I think is it still majority Democrat now as far as the city council? Yeah. So that kind of tells you, kind of where you're at in the politics of the local politics.
But let me bring this up to you two brothers. Deirdre, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. I'll just call him William.
Yeah.
Or call him Bill. Deirdre. He actually had the experience. You feel me? 12 years, I think he's 12 years as mayor of Jeffersontown, right? I used to live in Jeffersontown. I had no complaints. No complaints. Law enforcement in particular, I was very impressed with it. Your boy Greenberg, as far as I know, maybe I'm wrong, but he had no public office experience whatsoever. Now, I heard he's a pretty good business guy. That's a good thing to know. But to me, there's a difference between running my business and our city. You understand what I'm saying there? Still, he lost. Still, Louisville said, nah, we want this guy as opposed to the guy who had great experience as a mayor. I couldn't get over there. Brother Vince, chime in.
Okay, I got to go back to what Brother James said. And right off the bat, he said he's been Democrat his whole life, and he voted Republican nearly all down tickets. Isn't that right, Brother James?
Yeah.
Okay, that right there sums up exactly what I said. Every time in the last 3 elections, when we've gone out door to door, we've walked, we've done conventions, we've done meetings, time and time again, people say that exact thing. I've been Democrat my whole life. The Democrats have destroyed our city. I'm voting Republican. But yet again, the Congress, the Democratic congressperson wins by the exact same percentage almost every time. How's that possible when so many Democrats have switched, but yet the Democrat is still winning by the exact same percentage within 2%?
Wow.
Look, take a look at it. It's I'm telling you, it's sad, but
you got to crunch the numbers. Crunch those numbers. You're saying those numbers don't seem to be adding up to you. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Oh, okay, brother James. Man, the one candidate had the experience overwhelmingly. The other guy did.
Well,
what are your thoughts?
Well, let me hold on for a second here. Let me stop this phone from ringing. I'm sorry about that. I would probably say that. Let me kind of get this thing straight here. I would say that people are just not that smart. And we don't probably address that, but you got a lot of people that are just not that smart when it comes to voting.
Okay.
When you looking at a situation, you can see that, okay, the city's been under this control over the last 10 years, and then you've got crime going through the roof. You've got all these other problems that's kind of coming about, and still getting them to realize that, well, maybe it's time to make some changes in a different direction. And that is that's part of what probably could be part of the thing is that people are just not that smart when it comes to voting.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they don't know what's in their best interest. They just we become creatures of habit, and we got habit, and you probably are in a situation where you don't want to rock the boat with your family, your friends. If you say, "Hey, man, I crossed the line, I voted on this other side," then all of a sudden, even from the black side, oh man, you on that side, the Republicans, the Republicans are racist, and you vote with the racists and the Trump people and this that, and the other. So and I ain't gonna vote Republicans. And I've come across plenty of people, and you probably have too, where they just said, "I vote straight Democrat. I don't consider any other opposition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to any other opinion." And people don't really pay attention to politics. They listen to narratives. And if I can paint narratives, then despite what people may openly tell you, then they'll turn around and do just the opposite, in terms of that. And then you got a lot of people that, regardless of what, they're just entrenched in the Democratic camp or the Republican camp. And regardless of how that's going to be, but you would think with the way things are going with the city, breakdown of family, that people would be saying, "Hey, man, it's time to look at going in different directions." But if you have all these different narratives that are running around, everything from whatever you choose, then it's gonna be the same old, because people can get comfortable in chaos.
Wow. Good. That's a pretty profound point. I may call this interview "Getting Comfortable in Chaos." Oh my God, that might be the name of my next book. All right. Well, let me just say this. This is the True American Podcast. Please like, subscribe, share this with other folks, because, man, I really believe, as Louisvillians, we need to have more discussions like this. We need to have more discussions. We need to be, hey, what that brother just said, hey, maybe he's got a point. Maybe I've just gotten comfortable in chaos. And then, what Brother Vincent said, hey, fraud, hey, wait a minute now. Let's look into that a little bit. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's untrue.
Take for instance, Sir Friendly C, Ray Barker, ran for city council.
Yes.
Black man, well known in the community.
Yes.
He lost by like 50 something votes. Okay, when he has to do a recount, you want to know what they want to charge him to do that recount?
What?
Like $20,000.
What?
What are they trying to hide? What are they trying to hide? Yeah. When my sister, when she wanted to do a recount, they wanted to charge her over $100,000.
Let me say this real quick. Your sister, she ran for what office?
Third congressional district, third Congress, third district Congress.
Her first name is Rhonda, correct?
Right. She ran against John Yarmouth.
I just want to let people know that this is a family it's all about serving Louisville. So, guys, let me just conclude here with this one question. Y'all be as succinct as possible. I just want you to sort of imagine yourself. You're a consultant. I don't want you to view yourselves as Democrat or Republican. You're just a consultant, political consultant. And I've approached you and I've said, I'm asking you this question. Okay, as Brother James said, the state of Kentucky is pretty much red. Louisville's blue. What are 2 or 3 things we're going to need that needs to be done to turn Louisville from blue to red? Go.
Who's going first?
No, you go ahead. I'll wait.
I think that number one, we have to make sure our elections are secure. Weed out any fraud. Make sure that they're 100% secure. And the other thing we have to, and we've made great strides in this, but we have to work with our Black community more. And the organizations I've worked with and some of the people I work with, wonderful Black people, churches in the West End. But we have to wake them up because, as you said, a lot of them vote, and Republicans too, but they vote generational party line. And you got to look at the individual. I don't care whether you're Black, white, blue, green, Republican, Democrat, Independent. If you believe in what I believe in, then I'm voting for you. Period.
I got you. Brother James?
I would say probably the first thing comes to mind. I think it may have to be a little bit of rebranding, and not to say that you want to go away from your brand, but the messaging, you may have to change it to where you can accentuate the positives of what, sometimes change is good. For example, even in the mayor election, did they have a debate? I don't know if they ever had a debate so that the one guy could get his opinions out there and people could see how there's a difference between what one was thinking in terms of crime and family and other things that kind of help, to promote the overall well-being of the Louisville community.
Mhm.
Was there ever a debate? Because if it was, I missed it.
Yeah, there were debates here and there. The big complaints about the debates was that they were not including the other people running for the office of mayor.
Okay.
They were almost systematically, consistently shut out.
Only the two front runners.
Yeah, and the sponsors of these debates, they knew that the independent candidates existed. They knew that.
Okay.
But in fact, I interviewed one of them, and I was like, "Oh my Lord, you're bringing up some issues I never thought of. They sound important." And I firmly believe that if more people had heard about her, I think
The
she would
black
have got
lady.
more votes than what she gotten.
She
Yeah.
was wonderful. I loved her.
Yeah.
And then,
Go ahead, brother.
sometimes I think sometimes you may have to do what they do in those parliamentary democracies, and that means you may have to form like coalitions with other parties, and say, hey, we're going to have to probably instead of trying to make them the opposition, maybe say if they're, hey man, is there a way we can work together to get elected, because we need to really unseat this other person who's in power.
Right.
So we may have to align ourselves. So, I can put some of your people in office when I do get elected, things like that, to where you kind of build a coalition government.
Mhm.
And sometimes that can kind of maybe, and I'm just thinking in a broad sense, maybe that can kind of put you to where you need to be when it comes time for the election.
Well, brother, it's interesting you say that. You just pretty much summarized Israeli politics. Yeah, I mean that's just what you did. It's pretty much summarized Israeli politics. That's the way they do things. It's amazing. It's interesting you said that. But here again, guys, this is why I say these kind of things are important. To have these kind of discussions are important, and for us to share these kind of discussions with other folks, so we get some fresh ideas, some fresh perspective in there.
Well, I'm sorry, Corbin, one other thing. The other issue, too, is the narrative that the media pushes. The Courier Journal, the local media, if they don't like you, they're not going to give you a good coverage at all, or any coverage.
Right.
They'll act like you don't exist, and then most people won't know you exist.
Right. Brother James, how did you feel about that?
No, I totally agree, because if you look at most of the media outlets, in specific, the Courier Journal, which is pretty much the only print, media for anything, they're very left leaning, and even on some of the, radio stations, whether it's WHAS or Wave 3, they can be a little bit left leaning. So it is hard to get your message out when you have these narratives pushed by, the majority media.
Right.
And that's going to, because that's how people are going to be forming their basis, even though their situation is what it is. But if I'm pushing this narrative and it appeals to your emotional reaction versus your logic, and then you're going to most people are going to make a decision based on their emotions. It's not going to be a decision that's based on logic and reason.
Wow, that's interesting you said that, brother, because in my prior interview with Chartrell Hall, that's almost exactly what he said.
Love Chartrell.
And I think indirectly, that's exactly what Brother Vince said too, because he's saying generation after generation, hey, it ain't working. So, we need to do something different. Guys, I appreciate your time today. This is the True American Podcast. And again, I just want to encourage people, please like, share this podcast, subscribe, let's get it out there, because as Louisvillians, man, we need to hear from more voices like these two brothers here, and we need to be discussing what these brothers have brought up. Guys, thank you again. Hopefully, maybe we can do it again, on some specific issues, whether it be local, state, or national. Okay.
Okay, thank you for the invite, Corbin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.